Criminal justice reform was just one set. There's another set. It's white collar. And white collar, follow the money, anti-crime, which is the second package which will hit this parliament in September, I'm warning you, is comprised of the following things. Number one, reform your system of land registration. Make sure that your titles are correct. Make sure that owners are the lawful owners. Make sure that somebody is not holding a property for you in trust, where you take money from a contractor, where you take money and then hide it into a position.
The you are referring to is...
How else is there to describe it, Mr. Deputy Speaker?
Right, proceed.
When you, someone who is a criminal, take money from a contractor, where you then take that money, you ask the contractor to buy land for you, the contractor goes to Tobago Plantations, buys an apartment for you, for example, hypothetically, in his name, or in his company's name, and then you enjoy the premises. You see, in that circumstance, you have the apartment in your name, beneficially, not legally. So the mechanism of cleaning up the land registry so that your registration of deeds compels the disclosure of equitable ownership or trusts is one of the massive white-collar potentials in this country. Massive white-collar potentials. And I could understand why some people would be jumpy about that. You see, following upon that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is also the position of unveiling the beneficial ownership behind companies. And that's why an amendment to the Companies Act is going to be brought to Parliament in September to deal with the disclosure of beneficial ownership in companies. And that is why, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is joined by the position in relation to the reforms that you will have in dealing with not only companies, not only land registry, but the mechanism which we propose, and we're in consultation right now on it, of civil asset forfeiture. And that is where you are brought to court and you're asked to explain how you have acquired wealth in what you call explain your wealth orders. And if you cannot explain how you have acquired your wealth, then you will lose that by due process, by a court freezing or seizing the assets. It could be an apartment, it could be a car, it could be a series of gold chains, it could be money in a vault, it could be money buried at home. What I can tell you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, persons who have engaged in bid rigging, persons who have engaged in profiteering or taxing contractors, I could understand why they wouldn't sleep easy at night. You see, when you have a dedicated plan on white-collar management and eradication, anti-corruption, then you're going to have it. What have we done? We had ministers of legal affairs for years sit down in the registry and do absolutely nothing. The reform of the legal affairs division of this country, legal affairs was an underrated body, you know. Legal affairs as a ministry manages the registration of every single piece of information that is useful in this country to prevent fraud. Births, deaths, deed polls, gifts, registration of land, registration of chattels, registration of property. Every aspect of property is in there. Nothing computerized at the registry. I met the IDB project for the computerization of the land registration in an absolute state of disarray. None of the companies were struck off the record. So we saw juice containers being exported to the United States of America in a defunct company. A defunct company standing on the registry, which should have been struck off, was used to transport crime and the proceeds of crime, and cocaine in particular. Legal affairs should have been striking off companies, making the amendments to the Companies Act to catch the assets which fall from that. And that's why in September you will see that legislation on your desk. That's why a system of compulsory registration of land in this country so that there's absolute title is required. From the year 2000 straight up to 2015, the package of laws to deal with the compulsory registration of land never was never dealt with by the UNC. That's why it's on the order paper now and will be dealt with so that land title in Tobago can be dealt with. Permit me to deal with another area, Mr. Deputy Speaker, anti-terrorism. May I ask how much time I have left, Mr. Deputy Speaker? Good. Anti-terrorism. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Anti-terrorism is a critical piece of architecture for us. The Anti-Terrorism Act was brought under a People's National Movement government in 2009, implemented in 2010 in April. It came alongside first of its kind FIU, first of its kind Financial Obligations Regulations, first of its kind Anti-Terrorism Act. In the period 2010 to 2015.
Member for Laventille West, kindly.
In the period 2010 to 2015, the Anti-Terrorism Act was there available for members opposite for the Attorney General who held the position as I do, as the Minister with responsibility for the anti-terrorism law. You know how much activity there was under the Anti-Terrorism Act, Mr. Deputy Speaker? 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15? Not a single case was taken to the court on anti-terrorism. Not a single person was listed as a terrorist. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I stand here today on the 26th of May 2017, as Attorney General, we have listed as a government 341 individuals. As Attorney General, working with my colleague, the Minister of National Security, working with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, working with the Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Oropouche wants to know about coordination with international partners. Unless he didn't know, because he wasn't paying attention, the Honourable Member, Trinidad and Tobago signed on to an agreement that the United States was begging this country to sign on to. It is called the PICES system. That's the Personal Identification, Secure Comparison and Evaluation System. You know when you go to the United States of America, they take a picture of you, they scan your fingerprints, they swipe your passport. That system is being implemented into Trinidad and Tobago because we finally executed the agreement with the United States of America, and it'll be frontline on all of our border points in Trinidad and Tobago. Facial recognition, fingerprinting, biodata. Because you track terrorism by advance warning. And that's exactly what it was designed for in the United States of America. But it took this Minister of National Security, this government, to sign on to the Air Marshal Agreement, which the United States of America begged us for years to sign. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have successfully re-engineered the relationships with our international partners. There are frontline mechanisms for inspection at the airport coming. My good friend actually reminded me in relation to OPVs. A captain that pays attention to the security of Trinidad and Tobago. It wasn't the 3 OPVs alone that the Brazilian government dealt with, the Trinidad-class vessels, as BAE calls them. They ordered 12 more. The British building 12 more Trinidad-class vessels for the Brazilian government. But we had to listen to Naparima talk about OPVs not working. Building 12 more. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, as we deal with the positions on anti-terrorism, you have to start with listing entities. You then have to proceed with forfeiting assets under Section 22A and B of the Anti-Terrorism Act. We have 341, the United National Congress, 0. We have PICES, United National Congress, delay and mamagai the US government for 5 years and did nothing. We have Air Marshal's Agreement, United States government delayed for 5 years by the United States interaction here with the UNC government. But what did they do at the airport? Honourable members opposite presided over the sabotage and destruction of the facial recognition software in the airport. That's their legacy. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, as a government sitting upon the architecture in national security,
Members, there's a procedure how it's supposed to be done.
But you catch me, I got up.
And what you did, Member for Chaguanas West, what you did?
I got up. You did.
I
did.
Proceed.
Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, what I can say,
Imputing improper motive to us on the site.
Member, proceed.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, you see, a National Security Council deals with national security. Oropouche is fed up boasting how he was a member of the National Security Council for 5 years. They must have known, or they were asleep, or lying in Rudy's corner, that the national security architecture was being sabotaged.
Where's Rudy's corner?
Where's Rudy's corner? I don't know. What I can tell you is that this government is not a box train government. This government doesn't have people in Trinidad and Tobago talking about how to eat their food. This government is not a government where people say, well, you know, I'm a contractor and I'm eating food more. This government doesn't have champagne parties morning, noon and night. This government does not use the national security helicopters as a taxi service between San Fernando, Philippines and Tobago. You see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is a serious business, you know. We have also dealt with children as a priority. We have created the Family and Children Division Bill, now an act, now proclaimed in large part as at the 15th of May. We have designated Child Rehabilitation Center, YTC is now that. We have done the orders, we've done the protocols, we have put in place the Child Protection Unit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, 169 officers. What is the UNC's record on that? The Attorney General proclaimed Section 54 of the Child Rehabilitation measures, which say you must have a child rehabilitation center, and then the Attorney General, when he's not Attorney General, goes to court and then sues the state for not having a child rehabilitation center because it didn't exist. And they're talking about morality and the high ground. For heaven's sake, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is the epitome of irresponsibility. The taxpayers of this country should be demanding the return of monies paid by way of damages. Chaired on by the UNC. Giffing and gaffing like Oropouche East is wont to do. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in dealing with the issue, Madam Speaker, as I welcome you back, may I ask either one of you for the time remaining? 15 seconds. Thank you. Madam Speaker, I could talk about human trafficking. I could talk about the mechanisms that we're dealing with to operationalize the improvements in the prison system. There is so much to do, but we'll take that to the public domain. Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to contribute, and I denounce this motion as a fabrication of fantasy on the part of Naparima.